Hello and welcome to Look Who's Talking. We just watched Rosa, the third episode of Series 11, and the first episode where they go to the past. So, what did you think of it, Chris?
Well, I thought it was appropriate that it was about Rosa Parks because it felt very stationary and didn't really seem to get going across the episode.
Right. I felt like they've benched the series because Parks are in benches.
Oh my god, let's start again.
Parks are in benches.
All terrible jokes aside, what did you think of the episode?
This was a mixed bag for me in comparison to the past. On the one hand, I thought it had some of the best scenes of the series, some of the best writing in places. On the other, jokes aside from my earlier comment, I don't really know what the story was. Now, it was a simple story in many senses because it was just literally, this person's trying to meddle with time. I understand that. I'm not saying that I couldn't follow the narrative. What I'm saying is that I didn't really see any motivation for anything, and I'm not really sure what the stakes were or what happened.
Yeah, I got like a Back to the Future vibe from the whole thing, not just because they were in 1955, but because the plot all boiled down to them stopping this one thing from happening, or rather making sure it happened. But I agree completely. It felt like a mixed bag. It's actually made me more worried for the series than anything else that we've seen. Like, even though I think this was better than the Ghost Monument was safer, there was less room for things to go wrong, whereas this, there were things in it that I think were really bad decisions in the edit, which they shouldn't have done.
I mean, let's just like get into it properly and like dig apart. I thought one of the things that stuck out to me as like a bad editing decision, and we spoke about this straight away after watching it, was the last 5 minutes. I thought everything was building up really nicely. You had this great moment on the bus where Graham was like, I'm not sure if I want to be involved in this. And then everything stopped. And you were about to have this incredible, what would have been an incredible set piece in total silence as she was taken off the bus. But no, they blared giant music.
Was that Adele?
I don't know.
It was like discount Adele, wasn't it? It didn't feel right.
So, it just felt like I hate it. It works better in films, but I hate it when they try and like manipulate you a particular way emotionally.
It was doing its job without the music. Like, I was fully invested in. There were a few scenes actually where it wasn't pulling punches with talking about race and that setting, which was really cool. The best thing about the episode, because I thought it would be a bit like when we've sort of tackled race in the past in Doctor Who, it's always been a bit like wishy-washy. They've not really gotten into it, have they? Like with Black
Thin
Companions
Ice
in the past. Yeah. And like with the only time I really remember it ever sticking out with Martha Jones was she brings it up in The Family of Blood, but it's like a passing comment. You don't really see how it affects her, whereas this, like, they went for it, and I think largely it worked.
The tensest scenes in the episode were caused by that. Like, what I really liked was the two bits that were the best scenes of the episode were Ryan nearly getting arrested for touching a white lady, and you could feel the tension. Like, I thought it was odd because some of that was shot really nicely. Like, the super close-ups there worked really well. It was really like, you were like, oh, this is getting real.
There were other moments though where I felt like the cinematography and the editing were all over the place. Like, particularly when, I mean, we'll get to the absolute joke of a villain in a minute, but when the guy, what's his name, Cresco?
I can't remember. It was one of those
names.
It was one of those names that they do in sci-fi things where someone's clearly just got a random name generator and they've gone, Kotaku Aronu. Yeah, that's a name.
Yeah. When he shot towards the camera when they were
and
chasing
he did
him,
that.
and then it jump cut, didn't it, to them outside? And I was like, to you, we should have seen the doors open. That didn't feel right at all.
No, it felt like they star wiped it. Like, being serious, it did just feel like it was really cheap.
Yeah.
What it stunk off to me was someone went, it'd be really cool if he shot at the lens. They got to the edit and they didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what they were doing.
No, yeah.
There was a few times actually. I do agree with you. Like, there was moments in that episode where things didn't need to be super close. Because what was very odd to me was they kept doing these extreme close-ups on faces, and those only work, in my opinion, when something's really tense.
Yeah.
So it worked really well in, like, say, the scene in the hotel with Bradley and Jodie, which, in my opinion, was the other best scene in the episode.
That was the best edited scene by far.
Yeah, super close-ups, wide, and then occasionally they'd just be normal dialogue, and you get these like ECUs. And you're just like, well, okay, what's motivating them?
The scene with Yaz and Ryan, where they were talking about their experiences in Sheffield, why was that a one take, and why was it like further away? That was the time to have a close-up, because also as well, I think it sort of gave away. They're not bad actors by any stretch of the imagination, but that scene, they were bad. That I didn't feel that at all, that bit.
On the flip side, though, I mean, for anyone who's watched the first two episodes, you know that we've not been too impressed by the acting of some of the characters, particularly Ryan. That was his best episode.
It was the best episode, but I feel like
the characterization was much better. He felt like he had something to do that was separate from what Graham had to do. Like in the first 2 episodes, it was always revolving around Grace, and their grief was shared in Ghost Morning. Whereas this, obviously, Ryan had something that felt deeply personal to him, and meeting Martin Luther King and meeting Rosa Parks. I think as well, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, I think they handled them really well in the sense that they felt like real people that they just bumped into. I was really worried that the way they were going to shoot it, they'd sort of, make them out like to be like saints before they've done the thing that makes them incredible.
I understand what you mean. Like they'd make them have an aura. Like I mean, yeah. I don't want to delve into this too much because it's off topic, but I often feel that when I watch Vincent and the Doctor, they're trying to make him into this incredible man. Yeah. And sometimes, ordinary people are just as interesting. And I thought what was really nice was how Ryan actually reacted to them, because it felt authentic that you'd be like, whoa. You would be a bit starstruck. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes in Doctor Who, when historical figures are in the show, they do a bit of a smart knowing, Shakespeare say being like, not Shakespeare, say they meet a famous author and they're not famous yet, they're like, oh, well, the future's right for you.
Yeah. Well, with Shakespeare, they do that, don't they? Isn't he like, to be or not to be, that's quite good, or something like that?
Yeah.
It's a bit like, come on.
Whereas this just more felt like you would just go, oh my God. Yeah. And then they'd be like, what? And then you'd be like, yeah. But it did have a kind of Back to the Future vibe.
But there was no tension at the end, because in Back to the Future, I know clearly that the Doc's got to connect that wire. It's got to strike the building, the lightning. It's got to connect to that wire, and Marty's got to hit that line at the exact moment to get back to 1985. Whereas this, I was kind of like, okay, so Ryan's making sure the flyers are down, and then they're trying to get people onto the bus. But I never felt any tension of like these people. The bus needs to be packed out, because that's it's not a clearly defined win or lose. That is. Whereas with Back to the Future, if that electricity doesn't hit, it's game over. Whereas with the bus, I'm like, how many people exactly need to get on? What is it?
I think that's the main problem as well, is that once they dispense the villain before they introduce that grand plan, where's the tension? Because all they have to do is pull it off then.
Did Ryan just straight up murder him? Because he sends him back into the past, but he implies it was like a really, really long time ago. Like, what's going to happen to that guy? If they don't bring that back around in a later episode, like, it would be cool if he comes back wanting revenge is a bit, old hat maybe, but like, if it was something like that, like he wants to come back because they ruined his life, sending him back, then that might be cool. But otherwise, I don't think we're going to hear from him
I don't think he needs to have even done that. It would have been nice to just have 5 seconds of Ryan being like, oh shit, I killed someone. Or something like that, Or did I kill someone? Or something like that. And yeah. Should we talk about the villain, actually?
Yeah, none of it worked right up until when they ousted him. And I feel like they got rid of him that way because it was convenient and they didn't know what to do with him in the final.
But this is the thing. I've said this to you a long time. It would have been more interesting to do this entire thing, because you've already got conflicts in the fact that you've taken people of colour back in time to a past where people of colour aren't accepted. Why do we need an alien threat? Necessarily.
Yeah, I agree.
What if they turn up and they accidentally had diverted Rosa Parks, and that was it? They were just correcting the mistake that comes with time travel. I think the mistake
if you're going to rip off Back to the Future, rip off the best bits.
There have been people who've been saying in the lead up to this that Chibnall's been like, this is going to be like a Hartnell era historical, and it wasn't, because in Hartnell era historicals there weren't really aliens. I'm sure someone will point out a random historical now on the fly that does have an alien in, but for example, the Aztecs doesn't have an alien in, and it works, and it's one of the best historicals, because it's just, we've landed in the past, we've messed this up a bit, let's go from there.
But equally, there were shades to this episode that could have made it one of the best historicals, and then it was constantly brought down by things like the villain, terribly acted. What does he want, really? Like, he's kind of vaguely racist, but you're never given the kind of context that you'd need for him to feel justified.
And he didn't really get a through line for anything. Like, even if he was just like, I just like causing chaos, which is lame, by the way. I'm not saying that's a good idea. What was his, theme stated?
Oh, it was so bad when he was like, no one got hurt. Well, someone died. Well, maybe a few people. Well, maybe 2,000.
And then you think of on The Simpsons, when Moe's doing that lie detector test, and he's like, I'm going to be going out tonight with a lovely lady. And he goes like that. Sears catalogue. This is the thing that I think was wrong. I think they thought that we'd be watching it like, oh no. Like when he was still on that tanker with Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah.
So...
Also, he's chasing them down, and then when they keep bumping into each other, they're almost just sort of like, well, you better watch yourself. Well, you better watch yourself. And then they walk off. Do you know what I mean? It was that kind of vibe of you could just stop them all by killing them, which you threatened to do, but instead you're going to let them walk off.
I did think that was really silly
again.
that he had a program in his head that stopped him from killing.
I didn't mind that because I'm like,
it was used once though. That's the problem.
No, that is true. But those kinds of barriers are always interesting, and it's a nice way for the Doctor to outthink him.
So this was technically the first episode not by Chibnall, even though he got his name on the script. I imagine that's much in the same way that
Waters of Mars.
that Moffat gets his name on Into Dalek in the early years. Because it's the first season, I'm sure Chibnall had to have some sort of through line. He probably wrote some of the more like, Grace bits of dialogue. I'm going to take this as a Mallory Blackman story. I thought the script was well written. I do. We were saying this, weren't we? I don't actually think it's even a bad script. I just think there was poor execution in parts. That guy, sometimes Doctor Who villains are a bit like meh, but it can be made up for. But the acting was bad.
Yeah.
If that had been really well acted.
It was acted badly. Like, we'd cut into close-ups when it wasn't tense that was kind of really tight, and then we cut to another tight close-up, and then maybe we'd cut out again, and then we'd cut back in again. It's like, where am I in this space? And I didn't feel like I noticed the editing in a bad way in the first 2 episodes. I feel like I really did in this one.
I do just think, though, I think it was a good episode to have as a sort of a... How do I put this? It's nice to know that Chibnall has a bit of audacity to try an idea.
Yes. And
it's a brave idea.
Yeah. It's the first historical we've had that's really dealt with race in a clear-cut way of, like, we're going to talk about this. And I like that they established that from the very beginning when Ryan tried to give his that glove to that lady, and that guy was like, what you doing, boy? And all this kind of... I like that it was like, immediately as soon as I got there, it's like, we're not going to beat around the bush. This is what the episode's about.
Although the BBC American accents...
Yeah, they're terrible.
They're really bad. It's like someone watched Deliverance for like 10 seconds just before they went on set, and they were like, come over here, boy. Like, it's terrible, terrible accents. But it's really hard to say whether I enjoyed it. I think you have to give it a tiny bit of credit for being braver than the first 2 episodes.
Yes.
And that does give me some sense of excitement.
There was a moment very early on where I was like, this could be better than the pilot, and then it let itself down. As I said at the start, I'm more worried now after this because Ghost Monument, it was a romp. It was really low stakes. It was okay, but there was nothing to make me worried. Whereas this, I'm like, the editing can't be like that again. The pacing can't be like that again. I need to have a clear finale with a villain that is making me tense, and that was all lacking. And if it's like that next week, particularly with we're getting a monster story next week.
I mean, I don't want to dwell on this too much because we could be either proven right or wrong, but I'm a bit worried about arachnids in the UK as well because that just seems so normal.
Yeah.
And we've kind of had we've obviously had arachnids with Planet of the Spiders before. It won't be meant to be this free crystal, which is a kind of cool idea. But we also kind of had spiders in Kill the Moon, even though they weren't spiders.
Yeah.
So what's this? This doesn't look... Obviously, they're keeping it pretty tight shut, but if this is just spiders...
Yeah.
If this is spiders...
I mean, it might give you the chance to do, like, a really cool horror type story. Do you know what I mean? Like there might be some really tense scenes. And if it is just a really straightforward... monster in a maze type story, then that might be refreshing. It might be cool.
One thing I will say, in not the defence, but to sort of try and abate your worry is, I know we've got a reduced episode count, so maybe this science isn't as exact as it used to be, but we do have sometimes classics in the pilots, like 11th Hour. Have we ever really had a great episode 2 and 3 in this new series?
No. I keep
I'm just running
that.
through them in my head at the moment. You know, you've got Unquiet Dead and End of the World.
Shakespeare Code.
Tooth and Claw, which is okay.
Victory of the Daleks.
Fires of Pompeii is good. Planet of the Ood good, but we've never really had...
No.
Have we ever had a...
Oh
my God, everyone's talking about it episode?
That's true.
Other than maybe Impossible Astronaut in the entire run.
Yeah.
It normally starts to kick into gear around episode 4 and 5, and so I'm...
It's just because there's so much riding on this series, it has to blow me away. And the first episode did, these two haven't, and... this one has now added that level of pressure, and I'm really worried about arachnids in the UK. It needs to be really good. It needs to be as good or better than that first episode for me to still be as invested.
But some of the best series of Doctor Who do come into their elements in their own half. You know what I mean? Like, Series 1 is patchy at the beginning and then it kicks into gear with Dalek.
That's true.
Series 3, which a lot of people consider to be one of the best series, although for a future instalment of this show, post-broadcast, I will be arguing that it's not actually that great.
Really?
Well, the second half of it's incredible, but the first half is not good. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can have classic series that are built to be really great. Series 9 is also a bit like that.
Series 9 has got really, really good episodes and then some stinkers.
Yeah, and most of it's front-loaded with the stinkers and it's back-loaded with the good episodes. So I don't think this is necessarily indicative of a wider series problem.
But I still don't feel like we should be making excuses at the end of the day. Like, I want to tune in and watch something good. I don't want to watch something as patchy as it was today. I feel like for many people as well, this is Doctor Who's last chance. I feel like Moffat burned a lot of viewers. This is the chance to get all those people back on board, to renew the goodwill. We can't be editing things the way it was edited.
But then I think on the flip side, I think this episode, by the sheer nature of it being a important, risky idea, this has got people talking about Doctor Who again.
Yes.
And I think all three episodes, Ghost Monument less so, but the pilot and this episode have achieved something that's been absent for a long time, which is they've made some kind of watery, coolly moments out of Doctor Who. Whether this episode people thought it was good or bad, people will be talking about this episode. This will be a divisive episode. I feel
that's like
important.
It perhaps comes across more negative than than we were whilst watching it. Like, there is a lot of good stuff in it.
No, I don't think it's a bad episode. I just thought it was okay. I don't think it was bad. I am hoping this is the weakest episode of the season, but it's not a bad episode. I think Ghost
Monument was worse than this. This had some genuinely good bits in it, whereas, like, the more I think about Ghost Monument, particularly now it's like a week later, I have no desire to rewatch it. Once you know it's the TARDIS, do you care about anything else in the episode? I don't care about any of those characters. Like, whereas I think Rosa was compelling. Maybe I'd like to watch that again. Do you know what I mean?
I do get what you mean. It's really difficult to place this one. If I were to rank right now, I'd probably put it second in my ongoing tally. I would say that it was semi-skimmed milk. I would not say that it was full-fat milk.
Yeah, I'm going to go with semi-skimmed. Skimmed is too harsh. You got to see the cogs in my brain working in real time there. Or maybe we'll jump cut it. So I immediately knew what I was going to say. We'll see.
Well, that'd be quite poor editing. No, but overall, I just thought this was okay. And you know what it is? If this had been outright bad, I would have more been like, oh, they missed the mark. Oh, well. Whereas the fact that it was just okay...
It's frustrating.
Yeah, I'd almost have wanted it to... It sounds bad because I don't want to watch something bad, but if it missed the mark, it would be a write-off.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that's the fear of the season.
Yeah.
And it was just okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's the actual problem.
To end on a more positive note, well, critically positive, but obviously it's not a positive thing to say about people, but it was nice in the sense that I felt they were in danger. Like, I felt like they couldn't stay there for too long.
It felt like an alien planet, which was really effective.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like they were in a zone where they didn't understand the rules. They didn't understand what was quite right etiquette. And there's some again, coming back to that scene, there's some really good writing in that bit where the policeman said, "Are you harbouring?" And Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor was like, "There's no one here we're harbouring who shouldn't be here," or it was something like that, wasn't it?
He describes Yasmin and Ryan in an unsavoury way, and I think she says, there's no one here of that description, or what I would say fits that description, which she's kind of saying, like, I wouldn't call them that, so no, which was a really nice bit of dialogue.
And then she does say that as he goes to the bathroom. She says something like, "There's no one here who shouldn't be here." I thought that was nice, clever, subtle writing.
But then at the same time, when Rosa was like, "If I won this thing, would I be allowed to sit on the bus?" And then the Doctor goes, "No." "Would I have the right to sit on this bus?" And then she goes, "No," and gets up to leave. I thought the Doctor was going to say something to, like, the effect of, like, "You already have the right to sit on this bus."
No,
but then she says nothing. It felt really mean.
I think that's more though. This is a thing. If they'd have had again another line of dialogue about like we shouldn't be messing with, just really hammer home we shouldn't be messing with it. Because I felt like the idea of that scene was that she's like, well, I can't mess with this now and tell you what you're going to do because then you won't do it. Just anything like that. Like someone should have gone, why didn't you tell? Like someone should have literally said that. But again, they're not nitpicks. They're more comments on the same theme in effect, aren't they?
Yeah.
That we felt it could have been better than it was, and that's what's frustrating. I think that's ultimately what it was. It was a frustrating episode.
Yeah.
But it did do things right that I had these massive fears that it was going to be like the Doctor sweeps in and inspires Rosa Parks to fight justice. It could have been a car crash.
I'm glad they didn't do anything when they were on the bus and Rosa had her moment. I'm glad they didn't say anything.
They didn't Sonic the bus driver or anything like that. Like it was just that was my biggest fear was what does the Doctor do to influence this? And as it turns out, nothing.
So that was Look Who's Talking. Rosa. Episode 3.
We forgot by the way the title for that episode was absolutely awful. That's like one
Yeah,
of the worst
it
titles
is
for a
bad.
Doctor Who episode ever. Although it's thankfully been beaten to worst title ever by next week's episode, Arachnids in the UK. Which,
That is true. The one thing I do like about this week's episode is with the first episode, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, it was a really unwieldy title on our video, whereas this one will be like, Rosa, Look Who's Talking. That's nice and clean, so I do thank them for that.
Yeah, and then it'll be Arachnids in the UK. Look Who's Talking.
Oh, yeah, it's awful.
My spidey senses are detecting it'll be shit.
Don't forget to click below and subscribe to the official Full Fat Videos YouTube channel.